Every now and then there's always that one device that brings some crazy features you really want to love and just can't, which means you'll end up forgetting that they exist after a week, all the while realizing that the device is just fine without them. That's the story of the LG G8 ThinQ. There's so much I want to love about this phone, and that's really cool, and none of that has to do with the gimmicks. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and this is our full review. One interesting thing about LG is that this company is not afraid to stand way behind or far ahead in certain trends, and the LG G8 ThinQ is a clear example of that. Let me start this video by telling you what I like about this phone. It starts with the hardware. Since the G6, LG is good about building glass tanks that feel good and look good. This device is mil-spec 810G certified and brings a stronger Gorilla Glass 6 for peace of mind. The finish might look black at a glance, but the tone of blue that it picks up when you shift it at an angle is really elegant. It continues with the internals. The G8 includes all the power the 2019 has to offer thanks to a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855, 6GB of RAM, 128GB of expandable storage, a large 3500 mAh battery, IP68 water and dust resistance, and wireless charging. And since we're talking power, the experience extends to the cameras. LG was the first to introduce a wide-angle camera to its flagships, and now, 4 generations later, it keeps getting better and better. Color reproduction is fantastic with great saturation and contrast, and having the added versatility of a more epic shot with the wide angle is so convenient. I have to say that I'm very impressed by the updates the company has made to low-light photography also. No more of the weird color shifting we saw before, and this even extends to the wide-angle camera. Given the wider than average aperture, it pulls in light just as well with almost zero barrel distortion. The company also claims improvements in video, which I do notice. I find less sharpening on the overall result, and there's even a video bokeh mode that uses the secondary sensor to create a depth map for added realism. Now, one of my favorite changes with this phone is the new selfie approach. In addition to an improved camera, we now have what LG dubs its Z camera, which means a time-of-flight sensor and an infrared light. This means far more accurate selfie portraits, much better results, and standard selfies overall, and even the video crop has gotten significantly better. More on the Z camera later, though. Last but not least, I also love how the company doesn't cheap out on content consumption. LG is still one of the proud few that still includes a headphone jack and adds a quad DAC for a better audio experience. Match this with the company's boombox speaker that uses the entire phone's body as a resonance chamber, and you've got a lot of punch when it comes to what the phone can do while you place it on a table. Only fair to tell you that 4 years ago, Thing is, oddly, content consumption is that precise moment where I jump into the reasons why I'm mixed about this phone. See, once you pick the phone up from the table, audio isn't really what I'd call stellar, and that's mainly how the average consumer consumes content. Like a merger between the two. But with some That could be because even if this phone has dual firing speakers, it does in a cool but non-conventional manner. Notice there's no earpiece over the notch. Instead, the whole OLED vibrates to produce audio. This is really awesome for phone calls because you can really hear everything even in the noisiest environments, but sadly at the expense of not being loud enough to assist the bottom firing speaker and everything else. And speaking of the OLED, yes, LG finally brings an OLED to the G line. We're talking about a 6.1-inch panel at Quad HD Plus resolution that's very color accurate and supports HDR10. Yet the reason why I have it in the mix section is because it's not really the brightest. And then there's the user interface. I mean, I love things like having a dedicated Google Assistant button and having far-field communication for the mics to hear you even from afar. My problem really is that the UI is as old as the LG G4 if I'm doing the math correctly, with the iconography looking dated, and then there's the design elements that just don't make sense, like trying to use the Pixel Pill to swipe up for multitasking, and then the app tray, which is wonky in itself, and then it requires a swipe to the left or the right for the applications. I mean, why try to reinvent the wheel and not just continue swiping up like stock Android does? Now, I won't complain about the UI bogging down the phone though. Navigating through menus is good and battery life is also good as well. About the only thing I like about the user interface is the animated wallpapers that interact with the lock screen, and I like the always on display in addition to how notifications aren't visible unless you look at your phone, which is something that only iPhones and Huawei phones could do before. And this is the beauty of the Z camera, the fact that this phone has a very accurate, secure alternative to Face ID. But wait, there's more. This phone has so many ways to authenticate, with the back fingerprint scanner being just one of them. The Z camera also has the option where it can learn my vein pattern and unlock my phone using my palm. And really, this is where things start to get weird and we start shifting into the things that I don't like about this phone. The Z camera enables air gestures, and yes, they are far more accurate than what we had with the Galaxy S4 many years ago. The problem is when the phone requires me to make this crazy amount of steps just to get it to work, and when I have to shape my hand as if I were controlling a puppet for the sensor to understand that I'm giving it a command. It even requires a specific distance, and there's just so much work that it just makes this whole experience really cumbersome. This is no easier or better than just touching the screen and getting things done, and fine, you can give me the argument that that's fine whenever the phone is on a table and you can't touch it, but sadly, even that experience is not ideal. To conclude, what can I say about the LG G8 ThinQ? If you were to forget about the whole air gesture mess and just see this phone as a regular smartphone, this is definitely a great device. We have good hardware, a good design, awesome content consumption features, and one of the most versatile primary and selfie camera combos in the industry. I do wish that it had a brighter display and load Nova launcher as soon as you get it to avoid this whole UI mess, and you'll be fine. Now, if you were to remove the gimmicks, I do have to admit that it doesn't have many things to differentiate it from other flagships. At this price point, I will admit that there are some better options out there, so just keep that in mind whenever you decide to take the plunge or not. What about you? What do you think about the LG G8 ThinQ? Chime in the comments, and while you're at it, make sure you follow us on social media and subscribe to both our channels, English and Spanish, for more videos like this one. You can follow me on Twitter, Jaime_Rivera, or on Instagram at Jaime Rivera. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.